And we're live now. Hi everyone, and I hope you're having a nice Sunday. I just came back from a trip to Yingpanshan where I got my black tea for this Black Friday. I will get 2 new black teas. I think they will be interesting to you. Today we're going to explore Nannuo mountain, and we're going to drink that spring 2023 Nano that we pressed. Maybe you can have a closer look like this. Okay, I'm going to open it for you. My water is already hot. I hope you're having a good tea at home. So this is what the leaves look like. So you can see some pretty small leaves, I would say medium small size, also looking a bit like Jingmai tea actually. So let's put them in the gaiwan and start brewing. Okay. So Nanno-shan is, I think, the first tea mountain I went to back in 2009 or 2010. So it has a special place in my heart because it's the first time I got to see some big tea trees. And why I went to Nannuo first? Because it's the most accessible mountain. Actually, if you come visit Xishuangbanna and you don't have a car, you can just take a bus to Nanno-shan, and it's a fairly small mountain, so it's quite easy to access. Let me show you. Okay, sound is good, that's great. Let's hope we'll have no connection problems today. So, let's go on Google Earth. Okay, so this is Asia. We're going to zoom into Yunnan, southern Yunnan, Xishuangbanna. There we have the capital, Jinghong city, with the Mekong River flowing there. I'm going to turn off maybe the labels. And the main road to go to Menghai is this road. No, actually, I got it wrong. It's this road. Really? Okay. Interesting. Okay, so you go to Menghai through this road. And so in the past couple of days we studied mountains mainly in this big spaceship-like mountain range, which is both shared with Myanmar and China. Yesterday we went to Pasha, which is just here, and today we're going to go to Nanno-shan. And Nanno-shan is very accessible. Yeah, okay, so the road actually goes there. If you take a kind of thing like this, so you have Jinghong, then you have those big flatlands, and you go up the mountain through this road. So you see here you could like turn left and go to Monghun, to that big plateau over there, but we're going to take right. You have a pretty big road here by the side of the mountain, and so you keep going in that valley, and at some point you reach you reach a small town like this. This town was just a roadside, like a road stop, and that's usually where the bus can get you off. And you see you have a bridge. Usually the bus will get you off below that bridge. Then you can walk up, and Nanno mountain is just here. So you can see this is Nanno mountain. It's really not a big mountain. And you can see it has kind of 3 ridges, one going there, then another one in the middle, and maybe a lower one like this. And it's a mountain that you can access without hiring a car. You just take the bus and you can walk up there. So you can access either from Jinghong or from Menghai. It's maybe a tiny bit closer to Menghai. Well, it's about 40 minutes away from either city. So yeah, let's explore this area. I started this research, so I was a bit busy today. when I started this research, I started by reading a bit of this book. This is a book written in French by an explorer from 1897, and he visited Nannuo at that time. So here is what he said about Nannuo. He said that Nannuo grows corn, opium, and tea, and they do the tea trade with the Chinese. So actually, they are quite well connected to the cities of Menghai and Jinghong through the tea trade. Some Han families even lived back in that time in the mountain, which was quite rare at that time, because at that time it was the Dai kingdom, so it wasn't even really part of China. It was Xishuangbanna was just a vassal state to China, and the Han were mostly just doing business. And actually at that time you also had some international trade. Like if you went to the Menghai market, you could buy some stuff from Germany mainly and England, because they imported it from Myanmar, which was a British colony at the time, I think. And so they had access to these imported mainly like cooking stuff, you know, pans, pots, things like that, and maybe some farming tools. So I was surprised to learn that through that book. And he said that Nannuo seemed quite wealthy compared to the other villages that he visited in Xishuangbanna. And it must be due to the tea trade mainly, apparently. Opium was also a thing, but it's not clear in the book if there was a lot of opium trade. Probably there was too. And he said that the Aka, so the Aka is another name for the Hani, the ethnic group which populate the mountain. The Aka were kind of subservient to the Dai. So just like the Dai were a vassal to China, you could say this ethnic group was kind of a vassal to the Dai majority and the dominant group. And it makes sense, and it relates back to my video on Hekai, where I said that the Lahu, for example, were evangelized and became Christians, and they were always looked down upon. And maybe it was because the Lahu didn't want to accept the domination of the Dai. It's a possibility. When you meet the Hani, you can feel that they are much more business-minded, and they tend to have lots of contacts among the different Hani villages. So if you go to Nannuo, they will for sure know people in Laobanzang, or know people in Mongsong, or even Hani from the other side of Xishuangbanna. While if you go to the Lahu village, for example, in Hekai, the farmer we work with, he never went to Bakanoi, for example. It's only, maybe 20 kilometers away, and he doesn't know anyone there. So they tend to just stay in their village, the Lahu, while the Hani, they tend to do business with other people. And if we go back to the geographical location, so you could imagine that even in the ancient time, that valley looks like the obvious way to connect both Jinghong and Menghai. So there was the main road was probably already there, and you can see, I just said you can walk up the mountain. So even if the road was really bad at the time, I remember when I was back in 2010, the climb up to this area took me about 40 minutes, I would say. So you could imagine that at the time it was quite easy for the Hani living in that place to access the cities. And this translates as well to our modern time, because you can feel generally, even back in 2010, Nannuo felt less remote than some other places. If we go, for example, to all that Bulangshan area, you know, that big mountain range that we explored, well, it's really remote. If you don't have good roads, you don't have much going on in Monghun. And even if you want to access Monghun, it's quite a long way away. You can see, like, this is Laobanzang, and Bulangshan was even more remote, and there's really no particular cities in that area. So you could imagine that at that time the ethnic groups in the south there were much more isolated than the people living in Nannuo. And so even now, for the tea farmers in Nannuo mountain, it's very common for them to even sometimes work in the city or go often to the city and send their kids to good schools in the city. So in a way, maybe they can feel a bit less rural, you could say, than some of the other, than in some other tea mountains. I just had the 2021. We also have a spring 2021 Nano, and that's why I didn't press a 2022 cake, because the 2021 hadn't sold out. We still have a couple of cakes, and so I tried to offer a diversity of mountains. So I didn't source in 2022, but actually it's a pretty consistent tea. Let me just talk quickly about the taste. What I noticed coming from Pasha yesterday, I had the autumn 2021 Pasha, and when I tried that spring 2021 Nano, the first thing that you can feel is it's a more mineral tea. It's a more straightforward tea. It's less of a tea for the mouthfeel and the huigan, and not really an exactly very fragrant tea. We will see that with Mongsong, but it's a good mix, you could say, and that's what I often recommend. If you want a basic taste of good Menghai tea, you can try a Nannuo cake, because it's really in the middle. You cannot say it's southern Menghai, it's more eastern Menghai, but I feel there is like a north to south axis and a gradual progression in taste, and the north is more fragrant and the south is more bitter and more about the mouth feel, the mouth experience. And so Nannuo really sits in the middle. So in the past I might have said that Nannuo feels like a cheaper version of Pasha, but it's not exactly true, because in Pasha you don't have that good fragrance, and you do have a good fragrance in Nannuo. But in the Nannuo teas I've tried over my tea career, I would say there's quite a diversity in tastes. I remember I tried some Nannuo which felt a lot like Jingmai, like more fragrant, a bit more high-pitched. And the Nannuo tea we source tends to be more muted, to have a more introverted fragrance, I would say. So there's a diversity which can be explained by differences in processing, but also maybe by differences in soil type, or by differences in altitude. Because what you can see on Nannuo is that it's a pretty steep mountain. Okay, so in the valley here we are at 1300 meters, and if we go up to the top, so the top must be around here, we're at 1900 meters. Okay, so you have a 600 meter difference between the lowest point and the highest point, and they have tea gardens pretty much all along the way. You can see here they have tea gardens, and right at the top they also have a lot of tea gardens. Actually, yeah, if you look, this is some plantation tea, and so from that spot you can see actually Gelanghe over there, where, and so Pasha would just be over there. It's actually a beautiful spot. If you go to Nannuo-san, try to make an effort and just walk to the top of these tea gardens. It's really beautiful. And you can see that around the villages you have a lot of that scattered forests, and that's all their ancient tea gardens. So it seems that they had there's quite a big population in Nannuo-san. You can see all the villages which are close to each other, and basically all that area is covered in ancient tea gardens. I don't have the figures here. I didn't have time to collect them, and I'm going to explain you why in a minute. And you can see that the southern slope is covered in plantation tea. So we could imagine this southern slope was probably developed in the 90s, at the time when there was that agricultural modernization movement, and that's when they tried to increase the yield. And so to increase the yield, they kind of discarded the ancient tea gardens and planted some new plantations. And we can see that these pictures were taken in January. How do I know that? Those pink spots, and those pink spots are cherry trees, which are in flower typically in January for about 3 weeks, I would say. I didn't know they had them actually in Nannuo. The government insisted for planting a lot of them in Jingmai because it attracts the tourists, it makes the landscape more beautiful. But the tea farmers are not too happy about them. They say that the growth of tea is kind of stunted next to those cherry trees. So I don't know exactly, maybe some competition with nutrients or water. Yeah, so if I didn't have time to show you, let me just check something. Yeah, so the thing I want to show you is this soil map. So I didn't have time to, I had like an hour and a half to prepare my presentation today, but I spent a lot of it just studying that map. I got stuck on that map again because if you look at the legend, it looks like a big headache because it's all in Chinese and there are so many different colors. But I tried to translate slowly what some things, and what we can see is in Menghai area it's not that complicated. So you have in the south, sorry, I cannot draw, the website is a bit finicky here. You can see that you have that big red spot, and so the big name at the bottom of that red spot is Menghai. And so south of Menghai you have that gray spot. Gray spot is schist. Okay, so it's like lamellar stones. Okay, so it's a stone that's like in fillets, like layers of stone. And the red area is granite. You can see it on the legend here. And it's specifically an acidic, what they call an acidic granite. Then I tried to learn more about this on Wikipedia, but I'm not done yet. But I think I will keep my research on this and try to collect my thoughts on that. I don't know much about geology, but what I noticed is, you see that gray area? Well, a lot of famous tea mountains are in this gray area. So you have the big gray area in the south, that's all like southern Menghai, the tea mountains we've explored so far. And then if you go up, you have another band that just goes up and up. And it seems that Jingmai is included in that band. And also if you go up, you will have Shuangjiang, and north of it is Mengku. So Mengku apparently and Jingmai have the same bedrock as Bulangshan. Now that's quite interesting. And then if you look at the red band, so that would be the granite, then again you have lots of famous tea mountains in that band. So I will try to explore this a bit further. Now the main thing I'm missing now is that what's the connection really between the bedrock and the soil characteristics? And then what would be the connection between the soil characteristics and the taste of tea? So I think that that's a lot of work that needs to be done on this subject. But I'm really happy and intrigued by this map. And so I will show you a few pictures. I will show you a few pictures of Nannuo mountain, but unfortunately, because I was pressed by time, I didn't have time to find a lot of pictures. I have maybe 50,000 pictures on my computer, and they're not always well organized. So this is the earliest pictures I took. This is back in 2010 on one of probably my first trip to Nannuo mountain. So this is probably Doijai, I guess. Let me just go back on Google Earth and show you the general geography. So, okay, so we're pointing south. We start from this little area, from the roadside town, and we go up the mountain. The road is quite windy, but if you're on foot, you can climb through the tea gardens, and it's much faster. And so I think this little village there is called Julinjai, the bamboo forest village. It's not very famous and pretty low altitude. Then if you keep going, the first village is called Gunyangzai, the ladies' village, the girls' village. And then there I think is Shetojai and Doijai. Let me cheat and maybe see if it's written. Okay, Shetojai is there, and Doijai is just attached. They just form a big village. And then if you keep going, I think that's where Bama is. Bama used to be quite famous at some point. I'm not exactly sure if it's that village or not, but there was one place which was said to be in Nannuo-san, and which was very expensive. Now since then, I don't think it's that famous anymore. And then if you keep going up and you turn, you have a couple of houses, and there okay, Gunyangzai, I'm pretty sure Gunyangzai is there. And this is now the most famous of the villages is Banpo Laozhai. And so Banpo Laozhai, let me check a bit better. Yeah, so this is the village at the top is Banpo Laozhai, and from Banpo Laozhai you have a really nice view towards Jinghong. So at night you can see all the city illuminated. That's really great vantage points. And so Banpo Laozhai is known to have the largest surface of ancient tea gardens. So basically all this forest here, you have that hill, and you can see that there is Gushu in all this forest there. I don't know exactly how the gardens are separated, like which village owns which garden. And so the garden location would probably matter more for the taste than the village it comes from, because I don't know, like this village, they might have some tea in that part, and so it would taste like Banpo Laozhai, you know. And if you, so they had the oldest tea tree, which is located somewhere over there, I think, on that ridge, on the road to Yakozhai. So Yakozhai is the easternmost village. Honestly, I couldn't tell you the differences in taste between the villages, because I've tried a lot of Nannuo-shan tea. Some can be more fragrant, more like Mongsong in character, and some can be more like Pasha in character. Now the one we get from Tafa, or tea producer in Nannuo-shan, is from Banpo Laozhai. His tea garden, I think his tea garden is somewhere on that road. I went to his tea garden many times, but I don't remember exactly. It could be around here, actually. Well, yeah, whatever. And so you might have a different difference of taste because of a gradient in altitude. Yeah, that was my point. You can have differences in processing, but also in altitude. And if you look at the southern edge, you have a lot of plantation tea. And if you look at this top, like plantation tea growing at 1900 meters might be very good, and maybe the difference in fragrance could be due to altitude. We could imagine that the higher altitude tea is more fragrant than the lower altitude one. Okay, let's just get back to those pictures. So you can see at the time they had the same houses as the Dai, and this is what the guy writes in his diary in 1897. And the entrance, and he also writes about this, the entrance of each village has some kind of fancy gate. So they are not Buddhists, they are animists, so they have some beliefs, they have a spirituality, but do not belong to any large religious group. And at the entrance of each village you have some little guys carved out of the wood. We will see more. So this is the woman, and we will see the guy later. And at that time you can see they also increase the plantation density. So this is a Gushu garden, and you can see that here they have you can see that here they also planted some young trees. And at the time this is what their greenhouses looked like. You had a lot of these especially I think in the Hani villages, but it's a bit out of fashion now. And the saying is that tea that dried in this greenhouse will taste a bit like the plastic. It will have a kind of special fragrance which will take maybe years to dissipate. So we tend to, yeah, anyway, this was very basic constructions, you know. Now people have usually a greenhouse made of glass or hard plastic. So this is tea back in 2010, huh? And you can see this is the big group of villages which we can see here. So the angle of the picture was probably something like this. So nowadays they are all modern houses. Unfortunately I couldn't find modern pictures on my computer. I didn't have time. And so this is what it looks like. This is looking towards Menghai, I guess. And so the big mountain in the background must be like the Mongsong mountain range, where you have the highest altitude, Huazhu Liangzi. So you see, it was very, very basic when they had these traditional houses. So in a way, building modern house is not only for your personal comfort, but also for being able to make maybe cleaner tea, or be able to better control. Because you see, in that condition, if it starts raining, you can only maybe just fold your bamboo mattresses, and it will probably lead to some problems, especially during the rainy season or autumn. So they have a mix of plantation and ancient tea gardens, probably one third ancient tea gardens and 2/3 plantation tea. This is an old factory in Shutozai, and this one was built in partnership with some Sri Lankans. At some point they invited some tea experts from Sri Lanka, maybe in the 50s or 60s, because their plan was to make black tea for the export market. I think it didn't really work, but the factory, that's the remnant of the factory. They surely have rebuilt it. I've never visited it, but I could imagine, like back in the 50s, a bunch of Sri Lankans living there. That would be fun. And this is the guy, you can see, so they can show everyone who's the boss here. And Yeah, I remember I stayed in Banpo Laozai at this time, and so this is the view from Jinghong. Jinghong is in the top right corner of this picture. Really beautiful place. So if you're in a hurry, you don't have much time to spend in Xishuangbanna, you can just go to Nannuo mountain. And same as Jingmai, when it's during the rainy season, you tend to have that sea of clouds. It's not so complete here, but I guess they can have better times. And this is a big tree. It might be the really big tree. Picture is not so good. But yeah, there's a place, there's a piece of forest. So this is Banpo Laozai Tea Gardens, and they have really big trees there. That's why it's the most famous village. Also the most touristy, the most visited, because you have the good view from looking at Jinghong. And so you can see here the slopes are quite steep. I didn't think too much about this, but it will have consequences for the soil. You know, like if your tea grows on a flat surface, the organic matter will accumulate better. So you will have a thick layer of organic matter, like you can find in Tapingzhang in Jingmai. And if you're on a steep slope like this one, then you will the organic matter will probably run off unless you build some terraces. And that's what they did with the plantation. That's why they are called taidi. Taidi just means terrace. Oh, and so this is Tafa. This is the guy we work with. I think we've known each other for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. And so he's a very conscientious guy, and I like to talk about tea with him. Yeah, I feel like he has that engineer's mindset in the way he designs his tea factory, and in the way he tells you about his tea garden and stuff. So this was a trip my wife took. I think that's when she made the video we have on YouTube, meeting the tea farmers. He also has quite some big trees in his garden. And so they had some roasted tea. I think they even boiled some fresh leaves or something like that. But they seem to have had a good time. Okay, so that's about it for the pictures. Let me check if there are any comments. So I'm happy you're all having nice tea. Yeah, maybe I can talk a bit about the tourism. So Nannuo mountain is you could say, is the easiest mountain to access from the city, and Jinghong is a very touristy city. If you ask the Chinese about Yunnan, usually they will tell you about Dali, Lijiang, and Xishuangbanna. So a lot of tourists visit Jinghong, and even if they are just moderately interested in tea, they might take a trip to Nannuo mountain, for example, because it's accessible, and the people have been early on quite open to receiving tourists. And yet if you go to the place, it doesn't feel like a tourist factory. Actually, they say it's touristy, but personally I haven't seen that many tourists. When we go there, we usually just meet tea people. So some people would think that the price of Nannuo Shan tea is too high because they sell mainly to the tourists. But I think that's not true. Because first, the price is moderate, I could say. It's as far as like Gushu goes, it's less expensive than southern Menghai. You could say about the same as Jingmai. I think the price is relatively fair in Menghai area because it's mainly bought by the big factories for blends or for their own pressings. And so if the price for value is not good, then naturally they won't buy the tea, and therefore the price will decrease. So I would say in Menghai you don't have good deals or bad deals. The tea is priced according to the taste. And so you could imagine for tourists, maybe they will sell the cheaper stuff. Actually, if the tourists don't know too much about tea, that can be a way for them to sell their cheaper teas, like their low altitude plantation tea, which is not good enough for the tea factories. Then they might sell it at a premium to the tourists. So you could think that having tourism can increase the income of the farmers by providing a different source of customers, but I think they will only sell a specific product to this source of customer. And so if in a mountain you have good tea, good and expensive tea and cheap tea, well, your cheap tea you could sell it to the big tea factories to make ripe pu'er, for example, or cheap cakes, or you could sell it to the tourists, maybe, who don't know too much about tea. So, of course, in that case, it would be you'd make more money selling to the tourists if you don't have a big amount. What will happen in practice, I think, if they produce tons and tons of this tea, is they will sell most of it to the factories and maybe press their own cakes with different material quality and sell to the tourists. So they will have like a retail part to their business. But overall, it won't influence the wholesale price. And for the high quality tea, I doubt really the visitors there buy high quality tea. At least that's my experience with the tourists in Jinghai. Most of those people, they come to eat good food, maybe stay in the village, have that ethnic minority experience, which feels very exotic for the Chinese from the big cities. And they probably won't be super interested in tea. And if they are interested in tea, they don't need to join the tourist group. They can just go more as tea buyers. And lots of people do that. They just take a trip around the tea mountains and buy their tea for the year or to offer as gifts. So you could say that the tea industry has a tourism component in it, because being a tea boss is a lifestyle. Being a tea boss is a lifestyle. A lot of those tea bosses are pretty affluent Chinese, and maybe they take a vacation to the tea producing area. Maybe they drive from the city, or they just rent a car there. They usually have a kind of guide, and maybe some tea farmers can act as a guide. I know that Tafa, for example, our guy in Nannuo, he has a big customer from Shandong province in northern China. Every year he comes and stays for 2 weeks, and Tafa takes him around the tea mountains, and he buys. He actually bought some of our tea in the past, and so he goes shopping. Maybe 50 kilos here, 100 kilos there, and they are half private collectors, half maybe they plan on opening a tea house when they retire. They just use it as business gifts. So it's a lifestyle thing. It's a bit like starting a fine wine collection. Some wealthy Chinese like to collect the tea. And I think the traveling experience is important to entice those people to buy these teas. If every year, like, you stay for 2 weeks in Yunnan, going around the tea mountains, eating good food, seeing beautiful landscapes, and then buy your tea, I think it's better than just going to the wholesale tea market in your local city and buy tea purely as an investment. So I think that's how the tourism industry, that's what I call like proper tea tourism, I would say. Like they come and will both buy a good amount of tea wholesale and have a good traveling experience. And then you have the more mass tourism, where you will have tour groups who will come by private bus, just hang out. Maybe they will just pay $100 for the day trip, and typically they won't really buy tea because they are not real collectors or investors in tea. And this tea tourism is only viable in more accessible mountains. And for example, in Chiangmai, I will develop more when we'll do the video about Chiangmai. But there's kind of a conflict, or I feel people don't really know which way to go, because they both want to develop that mass tourism and also make a trip to the tea mountains something unique, but in some way it's not really compatible with mass tourism. So we'll see how it develops. But it seems that they're doing well in Nannuo, you know, because their tea business is going well, and I guess they can have an increased income from the Nannuo, from the tourism. So yeah, let me just conclude about this tea session. Is there anything I wanted to add? No, so I will just finish with a tasting description of this tea. This is a very medium tea. It has quite a strong sweetness, and you don't find that much in Menghai area. A strong sweetness, a bit like Monghu tea, I would say. A sweetness on the tongue, and it's medium mouth coating, you could say medium thickness. It's not as deep as the teas from southern Menghai, so you won't have as deep a Huigan, as nice like the Hoyun, the aftertaste as Pasha or Banzang area. It's not as aggressive. You don't have a strong bitterness like in Laomana tea. I would say you have a medium light bitterness. You can still, if you push the tea, you have a medium bitterness, maybe a bit more astringency than bitterness. In that way it would be a bit similar to Jinghai tea. You can have some floral fragrance or some muted fragrance depending on the processing. So you can kind of make it taste a bit like a Mongsong tea. If you do like a short high temperature Shaching, then you will have a bit more mineral tea, thanks to the astringency and the high pitch fragrance and the bitterness. Or you can have a more quiet experience, just like this tea is, which will feel a bit like Pasha, but maybe a bit more expansive. If I try to compare it to Hekai, it's less soft than Hekai. In Hekai you don't have the minerality that you have in this tea. So I would say, yeah, it really feels like a blend of Menghai tea, and that's why it's a proper introduction, in my opinion, to the Menghai taste, really. It has everything you would like in a Menghai tea, and doesn't break the bank like a Laobanzang tea. So that's about it for today. And let me just check the comments. Nannuo price on your website is about mid-range. Is it in the same in general market in the area outside of well-known mountains? Yes, as far as Gushu goes, it's a mid-range Gushu. You could say for Menghai area it lies on the cheaper side, because Menghai is an expensive area. But of course it will be more expensive than for example Jinggu or Wuliangshan or even Mongku. It's probably the cheapest Gushu in Menghai, actually, or among the cheapest. Yeah, and well, the price, now it's not the best business practice, but generally our prices on the website are relative to our cost. Okay, so when we buy tea, the price on the website is proportional to the cost of the material. Now I know that the good business practice might be to blind taste the tea and then put a price on the tea, and then you might find that some teas are really more worth than others. But I think our goals is to give you an exploration of those tea mountains, so I prefer to just use a proportional profit. Okay, and so yeah, you can compare the price of the cakes on our website, and that will be the same price difference for the raw material. Okay, So thank you very much for the nice comments. I'm happy that you enjoy watching these live streams. Now I will take a pause for a couple of days because I realize it's a bit, it's quite a lot of content to digest, and I can see that people are still watching the earlier videos. So, and then it's going to be Black Friday in a couple of days, and I have lots of things to do, so I will have less time, especially to prepare the live stream. So I think I will resume the live streaming probably next week. Well, we'll see, because next week I'll have to process a lot of orders, but when I'll get time and when I will feel that like the content will have been digested by the viewers, because I'm sure a lot of you would like to watch the videos, maybe not 1 hour a day, but maybe watch them progressively. So I will let the number of views on the videos increase a bit, and at some point I will resume these live stream sessions. And yeah, so logically next area will be